Our campus must be dry.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Dry Campus. Alongside you today are your usual co-hosts. My name is Ethan Dolman, and alongside me is Sai Balabaja Petruni. And today we will be discussing Indiana's first Big Ten win of the 2020 to 2021 season, as they knocked off the Penn State Nittany Lions 87-85 in a game that went to overtime, in a game that Indiana had the lead for literally 19 or would it be 39 minutes and 30 seconds until Penn State took the lead at the very, very end. We were able to tie the game, take it into overtime, and then out of all of the people, the person that I think we've slandered the most on this podcast, Rob Finnessy, comes up clutch. He hits about a 12 to 15-foot jumper to put us in the lead. And we were able to hold on that final possession to get our first Big Ten win of the season. We are now 1-2 in conference play, 6-4 overall. It was a high-scoring game, which was a bit surprising, considering we are a team that will usually not score the ball at a rate that we quite frankly did against Penn State. Shot 57% from the field, 31% for three, which isn't great, but we took a high volume of shots from three, which means a fair amount went in, especially from Al. I know Al hit a couple of good ones in the second half to extend that lead. So Sai, what are your initial thoughts on this first Big Ten win for the Hoosiers?
Big shot Rob. What else can you say? I mean, as much as we've slandered him over the past couple weeks here, he's shown in moments throughout his Indiana career when the going gets tough and you got to make big plays or been big shots. He has come up big, and the Butler shot comes to mind a couple years ago. But the thing with Rob Finnessy, yes, he made that big shot at the end, but he made a couple of big defensive plays down the stretch as well, including a blocked strip kind of play at the end of regulation. Penn State was about to take the last shot when it was tied at 80 after Trace missed his second free throw. And Rob made a great defensive play to kind of strip the ball away from Sam Sessoms, who, by the way, I don't know why this is. Every time we play a Big Ten opponent here, there's always one guy on the other team that just gets crazy hot towards the end of the game. Against Northwestern, it was Chase Audige. Against Illinois, I mean, I would assume was going to do that against any team. But the other day against Penn State, it was this kid, Sam Sessoms, came off the bench, scored 17 points. And, I was getting nervous there when he was about to take that last shot. But Rob made a huge play. And then in overtime, he made another big shot after a terrible possession where he kind of dribbled a ton at pretty much, at half court and didn't do anything for the first about 20 seconds of the shot clock. Then came in, didn't really know what to do there. And then he was forced to take a shot. Glad he made it. I mean, we needed this win. We absolutely needed this win, and we could not afford to go down 0-3. So at the core of it, Ethan, I'm happy. A win is a win, but there's definitely a lot that we could improve upon. There were a lot of positives in this game that, in areas where we had improved from previous games. But then there are some areas where we regressed. We're known as a defensive team. We played an offensive game. That's not our MO. You look at the team stats in the Big Ten, we're one of the worst offensive teams when it comes to points put up. We are the worst, actually. We are 14th in the Big Ten at points per game. I believe we're third or fourth in the Big Ten in points allowed. So, I mean, that is pretty much our identity in a nutshell. And this was the complete opposite of that. Offensively, we were great. We had 5 guys in double figures, I believe. Trace Jackson Davis had 21 points, doing his thing. Al had probably his best game of the season with 18 points, and he was making 3 after 3 after 3. And that is the type of Al Durham we're going to need for the rest of the season. Armand was great again with 16. And then again, as I said, Rob with 11, and then Trey Galloway, the freshman, stepping up with 10 points and 5 assists. So, offensively we were great. The problem for me is with that increased level of offense, our defense started to regress a little bit, and Penn State was making a lot of shots. Some of them were pretty dumb shots, I'm not going to lie, especially towards the end. But, man, they were making like 3 after 3 after 3. And, it's been a problem where the 3-point differential when we play games, is a reason why, we've lost games this year, because we're not able to make enough threes, because, that's not an area where we succeed. But worse than that is we're not able to defend the three well enough. Our perimeter defense has still been lacking, and it showed in this game. I know Penn State made some contested shots. I'm not gonna deny that. But they were getting wide open looks in that, especially in that first half, and you keep a team in the game long enough, even when they're not playing well, they're gonna start hitting shots more consistently, and then you're gonna be in trouble. And that's kind of what we saw in this game, because we were, in my opinion, clearly the better team for the first maybe 80% of that game, and it looked like we should have ran away with it numerous times. And we kept letting them back in, and we were lucky to escape this one.
Yeah. I think it was fair to say this was probably our worst defensive game of the year, even though we actually came out with the W. Even in all of our losses that I can think of, we held. I mean, as bad as that Texas loss was, who, by the way, had just beat Kansas today. I think they're a very good team, possibly Final Four team. Anyways, we held Texas to 66 points in a game that was that bad. Held Northwestern to 74. Florida State, I know, was also below 80. Penn State, I mean, the 85 is a little bit overinflated since that went to overtime, but it was 80-80 going into OT. It was very disappointing to see our perimeter defense lack. And like you said, they did hit some shots, but at the end of the day, it's not like the shots they were making were completely, out of the ordinary, like, oh, I can't believe he hit that shot. I mean, they were good shots, but we could have defended better. There were plenty of times where Armand wasn't completely on his man on the perimeter. Same thing with Al and Rob. I think a lot of it has to do with the communication on the defensive end. They're not clearly communicating, especially in this has always happened in the RT era, but when a big man comes up to spring, so it's to set a screen. So it's either going to be trace or race, right? Usually, most of the time, that's going to come up with that guy, and the communication between the big man guarding, whether that's trace or race, and the guard that's being screened against, that communication has to be there. You need to be like, hey, he's going to go right, he's going to go left, whatever the case may be. And as long as that communication isn't there, we're going to have guys open for three. And, Penn State shot 43% from three. That's definitely solid, especially in Big Ten play. They just also took a high volume. They took 28 three-pointers. 28 three-pointers. That's a sign that their game plan going in was pretty much to just try and outscore us. They almost had an NBA type mindset of let's just go out there. And I'm not saying NBA teams don't play defense, but it's more of an offensive game, right? And I think Penn State had the same idea of let's go out there, let's try and just shoot more threes than them and try and outscore them. And it almost worked. You had Myron Jones. He had a great night. He was 4 of 6 from three. Like you said, Sessions also had a great game, especially in the second half. But ultimately we did come out on top, so you have to look at the positives. We did have more assists than them, so that's a good thing. It's a sign of us moving the ball. We were out rebounded. However, I don't think it's that big of a deal, I guess, that we were out rebounded. I think some games it's a bigger deal than others. I feel like the Illinois game was a larger deal that we were getting out rebounded. It was more of an issue. In this type of game with this very offensive, when games are more of an offensive, when games are more of an offensive push, I'm not saying rebounding doesn't matter. I'm saying it matters a little bit less because you're going to have more possessions. You're going to have more possessions to score. Now, do I think Trace needs to get more than 6 rebounds? Yeah. Do I think Race can get more than 6 rebounds? Yeah. And it was pretty much equal distribution after that. Looking Galloway with 4, Franklin with 3, Durham with 2. Trace should have more than 6 rebounds. I'll give you that. But I don't think that Penn State out rebounding us really ensured that they had a chance to win this game. I think them taking the high volume of 3-point shots, I think them hitting their free throws, I think them having more steals than us and that stuff, I think that was the reason why they were in this game and held. I guess the one thing about the rebounds is they had an edge on the offensive rebounding side. And you can argue, hey, they had more offensive rebounds, which means they got more second chance opportunities. Yes. But it's almost something that I feel like this IU team almost just has to swallow and be like, hey, we're never going to, I don't say we're never going to out rebound anybody, but in our 20 Big Ten games, we're probably going to get out rebounded 15 times. But I think if we can somehow adjust our game to adjust for those lack of rebounds, I think we can be a solid team moving forward.
I'm going to throw out a stat at you. Offensive rebounds. We were out rebounded 15-4. And Penn State is not a big team. When you're looking at Big Ten teams, they're not a team comparatively. They're towards the bottom when it comes to size. So when we're getting offensively, we're getting out rebounded offensively by 11. That's pretty bad. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was looking at some Big Ten, team stats and things like that today. We are 14th out of 14 in offensive rebounding, and I believe we're, maybe like 11th in defensive rebounding. We are one of the worst rebounding teams in the Big Ten, which does not make any sense because our strength offensively has, historically, at least this year, been in our bigs, in our front court. So it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me that we're having this much trouble offensive rebounding and getting second chance opportunities, especially not getting those defensive rebounds that we're in those situations where other teams are getting those offensive rebounds and preventing those offensive rebounds, especially late in games. So I agree with you from this standpoint. It was not the difference maker in this particular game because I think there were so many other factors at play. I agree with you. The steals and all of those things. I think turnovers were big. We committed a lot of turnovers at this game, and it's surprising because, years past, turnovers have been a big issue, but, so far this year, we've actually been pretty good at protecting the ball and limiting turnovers. I think Archie's done a really good job, knowing what's happened in the past of trying to limit those types of things from happening. Now, Penn State also had a lot of turnovers, and we were able to get some opportunities there as well. It was sloppy on both ends for a lot of that game, but when it comes to the rebounding, I'm looking towards the future, and there's a lot of Big Ten teams that have more size than Penn State, and when we play those types of teams, Illinois was one of them. Northwestern, to an extent, was one of them with Pete Nance. We might really run into trouble, especially when you got guys like, Luka Garza, who they get like 10 rebounds a game, or Ron Harper Jr. for Rutgers. There's guys in the Big Ten who have a lot of size. The guy in Michigan, he had a crazy game against Maryland, Hunter Dickinson, with like 26 and 11. So there's size in the Big Ten, and it's going to be a problem. And Trace and Race have to find a way to make things happen. Race needs to get more than 6 rebounds. I think he can. Trace definitely needs to get more than 6 rebounds. That's not good. He had 21 points, Ethan, but I don't know how how it looked to you, but it almost seemed like he was disinterested in the game. He wasn't really demanding the ball. He wasn't, showing a lot of effort when it came to rebounding. And effort's a big thing. It really felt like he was lacking effort throughout the game, and it sometimes looked like he didn't want to be out there on the court.
Yeah, I'm not gonna let it be an issue now because he was 8 of 13, 21 points. That's odd. Yes, he should be coming up with more rebounds. Um, However, I want to wait a few games on that before I start to see something because, for example, in the Northwestern game, he seemed to be all there and he was, give me the ball, and things like that. So I think maybe it was something after the Illinois game and he mentally wasn't there. But if that is if what he was against Penn State here is a sign of the future, then that's not good because you don't want your best player to be a guy that is just kind of going through the motions. And hopefully we can have guys like Al and Armand, if that ever happens and where it truly affects us, get in his face, be like, hey, let's go. So I think that's something to keep in our back of our minds, and we'll see within our next two games here against Maryland and Wisconsin. I do want to make another point too about our rebounding is that yes, we do talk about Trace and Rice because they are our biggest guys, bigger guys now to rebound more. But you have to think about this too. Teams against us are going to naturally shoot more threes, and I think Penn State kind of laid out that formula. So usually when you shoot longer shots, the ball, if it hits the rim, is going to travel further. So guard rebounding is also going to be very important. So guys like Armand and Allen and even Galloway, who's just kind of this hybrid. I don't even know if he's a guard or forward. He's this hybrid guy. But they're also going to have to, crash the glass and all that because Trace and Rice are essentially our only big men options right now. So it's important for our guards to also crash the glass and get some rebounds and get the rebounds over the other opponent's guards. Because if at least our guards can out rebound the other opponent's guards, at least we can have that advantage and maybe that can get to take a whack at that rebounding deficit that you said we currently have. I fully believe that we're definitely in the way bottom half of the Big Ten in terms of rebounding. But if we can just find ways to maybe work around, it would be one thing if we were a better shooting team because then we could almost play this Rocket style where we just run the floor. We can't shoot that well. I think we can have our spurts there. It's going to be important for Al to keep this up, Al and Rob. And guess what? They've responded. I don't know if they listened to our podcast and they were like, oh, we better start playing here. But they've been playing. They played much better than they did against Illinois and Northwestern. Al Durham, 6 of 12. Rob, 5 of 9 from the field. It's promising because, and I'm actually glad Franklin still had a great game, right? He had 16 points, but he only shot 9 shots. And I'm happy because that means other people were shooting the ball. That was the issue before in the games. It's like, oh, why is Franklin shooting 17 shots? And you're like, well, he's the only person that's willing to actually have the guts to shoot the ball and, and to have the confidence to go up and nail down a 15-footer or a 3-pointer or to drive in, and try a layup or maybe draw the foul. So it's promising to see Durham put up 12 shots. Trace is, he was 8 of 13. He's going to put up shots. Rob, 5 of 9. Rob shot the same shots as Armand. And I think that's a great thing. Even Galloway, 4 of 5. I think Galloway can shoot even more. It seems like a lot of his shots seem to go in, whether they're nice layups, and he'll have a tendency to drive in and get under the bucket, and then he's out, kind of out of nowhere, and he'll try and throw it somewhere else. But Galloway starts shooting more consistently, or just shooting more, quite frankly, and Al, if he can keep this up, I think we can become, I'm not saying like a great team, but just at least a consistent team, a team that won't go on a 3-game losing streak. I think we can become that type of team. I think our defense will get better here. I think this was a bit of an anomaly, and let's face it, you could argue about 10 of Penn State's points were BS points, almost like shot clock winding down, they'd chuck up a three and it would go in. And it's like, all right, you can't do much about that sometimes. Thing is, that'll happen in the Big Ten because the Big Ten is a very competitive and it's a very good conference. But I think I guess my main point here is that I'm happy that other guys other than Armand shot the ball and the ball went in the hoop. That's a promising sign that Rob and Al have responded to the criticism, whether they heard it from coach or whether they heard it from the Twitter social media space, because I'm sure they're on and I'm sure they're hearing that all the time. So it was nice to see their response after their previous two games in which they did not play well at all.
Look, I understand, the point about Trace, and I don't mean to, come at him in any way because he's still our best player and he's produced. I mean, he put up 21 points. So it's not like I'm upset with that. But, I mean, if you look at those 21 points, it's like he scores 2 points. 3 minutes later, he scores another 2 points. 3 minutes later, he scores another 2 points. And I feel like that's problematic in certain ways because when he's your best player, and you're looking for some sort of run to go on, I feel like the game plan should be pass it inside to him and let him make a play, back to back to back, a few possessions where he's just getting buckets, and then you build a lead here. Obviously he made buckets at crucial times, and I'm not going to take that away from him. And, in some, from one standpoint, it's not really his fault all the time because, you have to get the ball inside to be able to make a play. But, at the same time, I just really believe he needs to demand the ball more, in those situations where we're having trouble, especially in those situations where we're having trouble scoring and we go on these little droughts here and there where the guards are struggling. He needs to make a play. That's all I'm saying. And, it'll be something to look at the next few games, as you said, but I completely agree. It's great that we've had, outside, I guess contributors other than Trace and Armand in this game. As you said, we have to give props to Rob and Al. They showed up and they showed out. And I think with each of those guys, the situation's a little different. When it comes to Al Durham, I think one of the announcers was talking about how maybe he just never really kind of recovered fully from that, ankle injury against Texas. I'm not sure if it was Texas. I believe it was Texas. And he was kind of taking a little bit of time to kind of get back to his normal self. And, that was the first game where he really kind of, maybe felt fully healthy and that ankle was kind of at full strength. That might be a factor there. And I think that he can really, be more consistent as the season goes on because, you and I both remember Al Durham at the start of the season said he was, the most confident he's ever been. So, I think he's still confident, and I think it was more of maybe of a health issue. I don't completely know. That's a possibility, but with Rob Finney, the issue has been on the confidence side, and so that is really promising to see him have a game like this where not only he's making big shots, but he's back to his old self defensively, and because we remember he used to make big plays on defense. He'd have a block here and there, he'd have a couple steals, and he was never really tremendous offensively, but he was a rock on that perimeter defense, and he's a rock as a defensive guard. So to see that type of Rob Finney back again last night, it gives great signs because pretty much everyone showed out last night, and that's a really good thing to see. Now, you talked about how 10 of maybe their Penn State's points were kind of BS. Well, that's probably true, but if we're looking at things objectively, from an objective lens, Ethan, we really got bailed out by some questionable calls down the stretch there. Big Ten refs, they'll either hurt you for stupid reasons or they'll help you for stupid reasons. And, most of the time we've been on the wrong end of that stick. But in this game, it really helped us out. They called a foul at the end of the game, end of regulation for Trace, I believe, that really didn't really look like a foul. They called an out of bounds on Penn State when it went off of Trace's foot very clearly. So we definitely received a lot of help, but after watching games where it's gone the other way, I'll take it. But overall, I think offensively, most of the guys really contributed. I really want to see a Jerome Hunter game one of these days. I hope it happens. I don't know if it will, but maybe one of the freshmen can come in and step up. Maybe Jordan Geronimo can kind of get some minutes to fill in for Jerome Hunter, and maybe he can contribute offensively a little bit as well. I know Jerome Hunter's been more of a defensive guy this year, where he's kind of just part of that defensive system that Archie has set in place, and maybe that's a reason why the freshmen Christian Lander and Geronimo and maybe Anthony Leal haven't been playing as much, is because they don't really kind of fit that defensive system that Archie has. Who knows? But I definitely want to see some sort of boost off the bench that can come in consistently, and that's the key word here: consistently, and score some points. So, but overall, offensively, a great game by pretty much most of the guys on this team.
Yeah, and honestly, I would rather win this way at this point of the season, because it shows me at least that we can have an offense. If we beat Penn State, but let's say we beat them, 63-61, it'd be like, yeah, I guess, we win with our identity and we grinded it out, but it's like there's still that question of can we score the ball? At least in this situation, it's like, all right, score the ball. We did not play well defensively at all, but we know we can play good defensively, and we can get and I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, when oftentimes your strength is always going to be your foundation. And yes, there may be a couple games like this, but I really do trust that we can go back into the mindset of defensive first. And we came up, even in a game like this, there were still good defensive possessions. We'd mentioned before the podcast starting up here that Rob had a couple of nice trips in there that prevented from Penn State scoring even further. So even in a high scoring game, you can still have good defensive possessions that show that you're a team that ultimately relies on the defensive end. But also just moving forward, right? We got the Maryland game next. I don't want to say must win, but I'm looking at the rest of the Big Ten schedule here. It doesn't get much easier than home against Maryland. This is one of the easiest games we're going to have all year. So you have to take advantage of it. 1-2 in the Big Ten right now. And what we were saying, 1-2 feels a whole lot different than 0-3. 2-2 feels a whole lot different than 1-3 as well. So again, another opportunity here in Bloomington to get a win against a team that 6-4 overall, 1-3 in the Big Ten, but their one win is against Wisconsin. And so they've shown that they can beat a quality team. They can beat a quality team. They can be a quality team. I know I could be wrong. I believe they could be having some no, sorry. It was Wisconsin having COVID issues, not Maryland. I had heard that earlier. It was Penn State, Wisconsin potentially having COVID issues. So we'll see about that. I know the Big Ten has some weekends in place that in case any issues arise, we can postpone a game to a certain weekend. So hopefully we don't run into any issues there. But yeah, we got to keep this thing going. We got to keep the ball rolling here in this type of conference. If we can get to 2-2 here with a win against Maryland on Monday, that'll help a lot. That'll put us right in the middle of the rankings. And I think just team morale wise, and again, going back to the Trace thing we were talking about earlier, you know what, the best cure to lackadaisical, effort is winning. It's winning. And that winning will help this team so much. And even just a win against Maryland, I think will boost this team's confidence a lot. And so, like I said, it's not a must win, but it's a game on your schedule that, originally at the beginning of the year, you were like, win, without even thinking about it, because it's home against a Big Ten opponent that's in the bottom half of the Big Ten. And so you got to take advantage of it, because, and I know we've been harping on it, but the Big Ten is of course very strong this year. So it was great to get the win against Penn State. We can talk about the nitty gritties. Ultimately, we did come out on top. Rob hit the shot at the end to take the lead and win the game. And, beating Maryland will even put us further up in the standings.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about the Maryland game in just a second, but I had one last comment to make about this just this team and our performance against Penn State, and that's about Trey Galloway. I just think this kid makes winning plays. He's a hustler. He'll score. He'll pass. He's a great passer. I don't know what his assist to turnover ratio is, but it's got to be really good. Because he's already having those double figure points and 5-6 assists type of games, with minimal turnovers, and that's pretty awesome, because he's for a few games now he's just inserted himself into the main rotations of this team, where he's playing big quality important minutes, and he's a guy we want out there on the floor. So I just want to put that out there and talk about how how much of a great impact he's already had on this team in his first year. And it's nice having a freshman to do that, because there's a future there as well. So that's all I wanted to say there. But when it comes to Maryland, as you said, they're 6-4, 1-3 in the Big Ten. I see a lot of similarities between them and us in a lot of ways. They're a type of team that play really good defense, but struggle more on the offensive side. They only have a few guys, I think, who are averaging double digits points, and it's all on the low double digits side of things. So the only difference between us and them, I think they shoot threes a lot better. I think they shot 60% against Michigan, and I think we can kind of put 2 and 2 together. Pretty much every team in the Big Ten is going to outshoot us from three. That's just kind of a given at this point. But they shot 60%, almost like 57 or 58% against Michigan in this past game that they played. Now, they didn't do that well defensively in that game, and they don't have a ton of size, which is where we have the advantage. Hunter Dickinson really just just impeded everything they were trying to do and inserted his will. And so that's an area where we definitely have the advantage, but they have the advantage on the 3-point shot. So it's similar to some of the games we've played in the past, and we've talked about that same type of formula where, yes, teams can outshoot us, but we should really be dominating the points in the paint battle there. So those are the differences I see. Some key players to note out. I just want to lay out some stats for you. Guard Eric Ayala, averaging 14.8 points a game. That's the highest that they have. Dante Scott is one of their forwards. He's averaging 13.5 points and 7 rebounds a game. And Aaron Wiggins, is averaging 10 points, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. He actually had 6 or 7 assists against Michigan in the latest game that they had. So, he 6 assists. So he's a pretty good passing threat as well. But a lot of similarities too, because I don't see a ton of team assists combined from this team, and that's something that we've struggled with in the past as well. Where we're not really producing good basketball, where we're moving the ball around a lot and creating good shots for our teammates. So it's a very similar team to us in a lot of ways. But again, they shoot the three a lot better than we do, and we have to make sure our perimeter defense is on point on Monday.
Yeah, exactly. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Very, very similar team to us from what I've seen. They haven't been able to score much in the games against their good opponents. They got clapped by Clemson early on in the year, 51, only scored 51 points. only able to muster up 60 against Rutgers, 70 each against Purdue and Wisconsin, and then 73 against Michigan. So we see a little bit of a progression that they're able to score a little bit more and more. And like you said, they're good from three. So if you can be good from three, you have the potential, to score a lot. But again, and mind you too that we did not do this well in the Penn State game. Last 4 minutes, we were up, I don't know, 4 or 5 ish. I think going into the last 4 minutes against Penn State, had a 12-point lead at some point against Penn State, and then blew it. Had to go to overtime to win. Again, here we go. I'm sure I can almost bet you this will be within 5 points, probably going to the last 4 minutes, because we play to level our competition always, and that's how the Big Ten is. You got to win those last 4 minutes. It's going to be very, very crucial. It's also on Archie. Our guys are going to be tired. How are you going to motivate them? How are you going to motivate our guys who are going to be the team leaders that are going to get the guys going and say, hey, we need to finish this game, so that we can come out with the W. Penn State, it took us an extra 5 minutes because we weren't assertive down the stretch. We let Penn State get back into this game. And how did Penn State get back into the game? They made their threes, and going up against a Maryland team that is capable of making threes, we're going to have to be aware of that. We're going to have to play solid perimeter defense. We're going to have to make sure that when because we usually never play zone, so we'll be man to man, and when the either center or forward comes up for a screen, we got to have good communication. Trace needs to talk with Al or Rob or whoever's guarding that guy on the perimeter. Need to have good communication so that we can you can have a switch, you don't have to have a switch, things like that. But ultimately, I do like our odds. I think this is a game that we barely kind of win, almost like a Penn State game by 2 or 3 points. We do have the home court advantage, and I know that it isn't as strong this year, but it's still, we don't have to travel. I think we do win by about 3 points. I'll go, I don't know, 74-71. I'll go somewhere around there. But I think the key, again, like you said, when we're playing a team, I don't even necessarily want to say undersized, almost our size, because outside of Trace and Race, we're not big. I mean, we really aren't. And it's not like Race is a true big man either. He's kind of like a hybrid. Trace, I think, qualifies as a true big man. Again, this is one of those Trace 2010 games in the Big Ten. This is one of those 20 points. I mean, we almost predicted it right against Penn State. He had 21. He only had 6 rebounds, though. That needs to get up. If we want to win this game, which I'm predicting that we do, Trace needs to grab more boards. 6 rebounds. He is too talented of a player to have only 6 rebounds, especially when he's only to muster up, I believe it was only 1, maybe 2 offensive rebounds. Especially with a team like Maryland that will shoot a lot. Naturally, threes won't go in. Got to be there for the rebound. So Trace needs to have a good game for us to win. Guard play, just be consistent. I'm not asking Armand to make 20-plus points. I'm not asking Al Durham to make 20-plus points, but not only communicate on the defensive end, communicate on the offensive end, right? Especially the guards up top. You need, whoever has the ball needs to direct other people where to go, set screens, wherever. If we can have an equal distribution of benefits while also, making baskets, I think we'll be just fine on the offensive end.
I think this game kind of, a big part of it comes down to 3-point shooting. We didn't talk about it enough, but in that Penn State game, we actually were able to kind of shoot the three pretty decently well. Armand was making threes, Al was making threes. I think Rob hit a 3. Rob hit a few threes. Al hit a few threes. So, we were actually getting some points from the 3-point line, and that needs to be a trend that continues if we want to be able to compete offensively against some of the bigger juggernauts of the Big Ten, especially a team like Iowa. We're going to need to score when we play them. So, I think 3-point shooting is going to be really important. Look, rebounding has to be better in this game, especially they're a smaller team than we are. This should be an area where we really excel and get those offensive rebounds. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head. Trace absolutely needs to get more rebounds. He needs to take a page out of the old Cy Balabadra Petruni book and get those offensive rebounds. They don't call me the rebounding champion for nothing, Ethan. So,
Yeah, rebounding champion for an a cappella group. By the way.
Hey, we're not talking about the types of guys I'm going up against. We're just talking about my incredible ability to rebound on a basketball court here. But look, that's all it really comes down to. We need to make winning plays. We need to rebound well. Be efficient, not turn the ball over as much. I think we need to go back to what we're known for best, and try to play the defense that limited a lot of those really good teams early on in the year to 60, 65 points, something like that. And also be able to continue this trend offensively where we're able to score more. So, that'll be kind of the battle moving forward to these next couple games. I don't know if we pull out the victory in this one, to be honest with you, Ethan. I don't see a stretch where we can shoot the three ball well in 2 consecutive games. I don't know if that's in the cards for this Indiana basketball team. So I hope I'm wrong, but I'm taking the L against Maryland on Monday. I believe we will lose this game 68-64.
It's a close game.
I do believe it's going to be a close game. I mean, look, this team is able to create close games with most of the teams that we play. I mean, that's not even a this year thing. That's been previous years where it's always close. We just can't pull it out most of the time. That again, I mean, that goes back to coaching and Archie and those last 4 minutes like you talked about. Sometimes it feels like to me that guys are kind of out on the court hoping the ball doesn't go in, and in those last 4 minutes they're not actively trying to make winning plays and winning defensive plays and winning offensive plays, where they're just trying to kind of if it's, for example, if we're up say 70-68 with 4 minutes left, it's like those guys want the score to be 70-68 at the end of the game. It's like they want nothing to happen over those next 4 minutes, and that's just not realistic. You have to keep playing. They're just kind of hoping that the other team doesn't score and misses all their shots, and then it doesn't really matter as much what they do offensively at that point. But they got to keep playing, man. They got to keep making tough defensive plays, make the other team work for their shots, force teams into bad shots, and then keep moving the ball. That's the biggest problem offensively in those last 4 minutes. The ball movement just completely stops. It goes back to that, one guy dribbling at the top of the key for 20 seconds, and then they kind of just are scrambling to make something happen out of nothing. So I liked what we saw in the Penn State game, but I'm not eager to, kind of jump on any bandwagon and say, all right, we're turning things around now, because it doesn't really look like that to me. I think this is still a work in progress. This is still a team that's still trying to improve daily and work on their mistakes. And I just don't know if they're at a point in time and point in the season where they can kind of, consistently, continue what they were doing in one game to the very next game. So that's kind of what we have to kind of be looking for in this game.
Yeah, and I will say, like, if it was, anybody except Maryland, Nebraska, Penn State, Purdue, I would, almost undoubtedly, say this is gonna be lost. But I mean, this is not a great team. Maryland is not a great team. They lost to Purdue. They lost to Michigan. They lost to Rutgers. They got clapped by Clemson. Like, this is a very beatable team. And if we want to have any sort of, I'm definitely looking at more on the optimistic side, but if we want a shot at March Madness, this is a game you got to win. I mean, this is March Madness, boom. Maryland, you should definitely win against them. And I think our guys know that, and I think they'll come out, with the mentality to win. I hope we can learn on our mistakes. And like like you said, 3-point shooting and rebounding. Got to limit Maryland's 3-point shooting. We gotta. I thought you brought up a good point where you said, I don't trust us having 2 straight games where we can actually shoot the 3 ball. I think that's true. I don't think we necessarily shoot the 3 ball that well against Maryland, but what I saw for the first time against Penn State was other guys wanting to shoot the ball other than Armand and Trace. I think that's a sign of improvement that is pretty showing and pretty valuable. And as long as we can just keep that up, as long as Rob is willing to shoot and Al is more willing to shoot, I think we'll have the confidence to go in and, when it gets to that 4-minute timeout and we're either up 3 or down 3 or whatever it's going to be, that more than one person is going to have the confidence to go up and shoot the ball. And with that just comes more guys training shots. So I hope that confidence can carry on. We can hopefully beat Maryland and then, move on into Big Ten schedule. But I think this is the first time we actually disagree on an outcome of a game, even for football as well. Maybe with football. No, because by the time we got to Michigan for football, we had both noticed that IU was much better and Michigan was much worse. So, like, beginning of the season predictions for football. But I think for basketball, this is the first time that we're disagreeing on an outcome.
No, I think it might be. I'm not sure if we disagreed on another during the football season, but yeah, though I had Michigan. I had us losing to. I actually no. What it was you had us losing to Penn State and beating Michigan, and I had us the other way around. You had us beating. You had us losing to Penn State.
I had us losing to Penn State. I know
you
that.
had us. Yes, you had us losing to Penn State and beating Michigan,
yes.
And I had us. I had us losing to both, I think, maybe?
Yeah, because you said 4-4 and I said 5-3 to end the season.
Okay.
And then, so we both predicted the Penn State loss. We ended up winning. Then we both predicted Ohio State beating us, and that, unfortunately, was true.
Yeah. But this is our first disagreement in basketball. And no, I agree that, if there's a game we win, it's this, of the group of games that, where we have the best shot of winning, it's this one. You know what I mean? But, you mentioned those teams, Maryland, Purdue, Nebraska, Penn State. We're in that group as well, Ethan. That's what I'm kind of saying. So it's not like, I know we come into it as, Indiana basketball fans, where we kind of have this mindset of kind of what Indiana basketball used to be, and that we, still have the status of a great basketball team. And so we should beat these middle of the pack, bottom feeder Big Ten teams. But the reality of the situation is right now we are one of them. We are towards the bottom. There are 9 ranked teams in the Big Ten right now, and we are one of the 5 that are not. So I mean, that's all I'm saying. I think we're a team that can also beat ranked teams as well. It's all about what team shows up on what day. And I just don't know if the offensive side of the team that showed up against Penn State is going to be able to show up against Maryland. That's the only argument that I'm kind of coming in here with. Because let's face it, we're not one of the top teams of the Big Ten anymore. So, I think we can kind of work our way up, and we had a good start with this first win here after an 0-2 hole, and If we're able to get this win and kind of balance out to 500 again and get 2-2, who knows what happens in the rest of the season. We might be able to come up with some sort of a run and be able to combine that type of offensive play that we had against Penn State with a lot of the defensive play that we had earlier on in the season. And if we're able to really do that, then and only then, this team can be a force to be reckoned with and can really compete against some of the better teams here. Or we can always just suck and then somehow win the Big Ten tournament. That's always a possibility too, but that's not ideal. But that's kind of the perspective I'm coming at it with. I do think we have a solid chance of winning, and I think this is a big one. I'm not going to say. I know we were talking about it earlier, and you were saying that you weren't going to say it's a must-win game, but I think I'll say it because I think it is a must-win game.
In terms of like March, in like, would you say it's a must-win in terms of having any sort of shot of winning or being competitive in the Big Ten and then hopefully March Madness?
No, because you can bounce back from 1-3. I'm saying it's a must win because of just being on the right track. I mean, like we can always come out with a fluke win here and there. Beat Michigan State a couple times because somehow we always have their number. But it's more so of having things trend in the right direction. We're one of those teams where we get a win. Historically, at least past years, we get a win. The next game, we're hyped up and we're really excited because we won the last game, and then it ends in disappointment. I'm saying it's must win because, you're right. It'll obviously help us in terms of making the tournament and resume builder and things like that. But it's too early in the season where it's must win because of that. I think it's a must win because, look, you just want to be trending in the right direction. And when you have a game against a team that is beatable and you lose, then things are going to get a lot worse. Because I don't know if you can go into a game against Maryland at home, lose, and then play a good game against Wisconsin in the next game. I don't know if you can do that. So, if we lose this game, we're 1-3 going up against a top 10 team. So that's it. It's not. Things aren't looking as good at that point. And you said it earlier. We have a tough schedule. And then we have that gauntlet of a string of games where it's going to be really tough to maybe even win a single game. So that's kind of the perspective I'm coming at it with.
Got it. Yeah. I don't know. I got nothing more to say about this. This is a game. Like I said, I think we need to win in terms of, like I say, keeping up the momentum. This is if we want any sort of momentum, we want any sort of relevance in the Big Ten. These are the games you got to win. If we can keep that winning mindset moving forward, that'd be great. Because like you said, there's literally a spot right now, currently, as of January 2nd, where we would play 10 straight games of ranked teams. 10 straight games of ranked teams. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. So now Michigan State's most likely going to fall out, and there may be some movement. Nobody's in the top 9 though. Wisconsin is, but they just lost to Maryland. So that's what's great about the Big Ten this year is like nobody's ever going to be like top 5 in the nation because they're just going to get beat by somebody before they can actually become top 5 in the nation. And I see nobody really running away with the Big Ten this year, but we probably won't have a shot unless we can somehow get on a run. But if a run were to start, it would start against Maryland, or I guess technically Penn State, but you would try and keep the run going against Maryland. So let's do that on Monday.
Yeah. So, the Big Ten's really lucky this year. They'll be probably able to send a bunch of teams into the tournament and maybe have a good shot at one of those teams coming away with it. Because, look, yes, they're not really going to have a team in the top 5 because everyone's just beating each other. But, those teams compared to teams from other conferences, I'll take my chances if I'm the Big Ten, because we got a lot of good teams. But as you said, this will be a big one to kind of, keep us on the right track. And, it's going to be huge to be 2-2 in the Big Ten, kind of at 500, going up against one of those juggernauts of the conference of Wisconsin. That's going to be really important. So you can catch that game Monday night at 8 p.m. We'll be live tweeting it as we always do, at PodDry on Twitter, at Dry Campus Pod on Instagram. You can follow us. Subscribe as always. That'll really help us out, and let us know what you guys think through social media, whatever platforms. We just want to thank you guys so much. Hopefully Indiana basketball can really ride the wave of the new year to some more success here. So we want to thank you guys so much for listening in to our 16th episode of Dry Campus, and we hope you guys have a great rest of the weekend.
Our campus must be dry.